Our future is in your, hands?
Welcome back to part 2 of Sumo Sheffield Plays Spyder with 2 members of the original dev team. This time out, we're heading into space and finally getting our mitts on that orange. You were talking, Emma, about localization testing. Could you talk a little bit about, for those of us who don't know what localization testing is, what that kind of involves?
Yeah, sure. So when a project gets to the sort of final stages in terms of having the script and the narrative and all of the dialogue pretty much finalised, and the point where there's going to be like very minimal edits, it's at that point we get on a localization team, and they're basically a team of translators. So we'll have somebody who covers every single language that we're supporting, and they basically have to learn quite quickly how to play through the whole game to check all of the different lines of dialogue triggering. And yeah, they pretty much work with all of the text files and translate all of the English into whatever language they're assigned.
So that sounds like there's a lot of different work and a lot of different languages for them, and
Yeah.
translators, and making sure it all fits. And
Definitely. And like, so one of that sort of became like a huge part of our job as well when the localization team were like live on the project, was supporting them. So firstly, we'd have to make sure that they had a good stable build to work from on all platforms every day. And then as they're having any sort of issues with the gameplay, we'd be there on hand to support them and sort of guide them through some of the stuff, as well as making them aware of like any bugs they needed to avoid. And yeah, just sort of basically being again a bridge of communication between that team and the rest of the dev team. And there was, for some of the languages, like where we were supporting the right justified languages like Arabic, there was a whole load of, I guess, like UI work that was required there as well. So we were, again, like sort of putting the UI team in contact with the localization team so that they could work out how to sort of handle the responsiveness on different phone models and iPad models with regards to like how the text was displaying. So yeah, they themselves had like quite a big job, and then our job was to really just help them do theirs as smoothly as possible.
Oh dear, I can't remember how to do this.
I think you want that 4-piece.
I need to.
Oh no, you've got to do.
I don't remember there being fire here. Do I have to put them in the fire?
Yeah, you've got to find a piece that fits
Yeah.
each
Oh no.
pipe.
No.
Oh no.
It's amazing, right? So we haven't played this game in a very long time.
No.
So well, that's good. Obviously it's not going to go there, right? Because that's like a T piece.
Yeah.
So
There.
more
Oh,
for
there
me.
he is, just floating up there to the
Yeah,
right.
let
Your
me
piece.
dump this. We call this bit of the game space fishing, because you're effectively
Space fishing.
pulling these bits of debris out of this zero gravity environment. So you're on a spaceship at this point.
so I guess when you're kind of doing stuff like that, what are the considerations for the player that you need to think about?
So being a bit of a puzzle game, it's like the same way, like I say, I haven't played this in such a long time. I had to kind of like think a little bit about what is it I'm actually doing here. But you're trying to always give clues. So I worked out, I couldn't put this piece in here because it's actually a T-junction, right? So it's all about sort of using visual language, giving the player as many hints as possible. We do have these kind of arrows pointing you at things. We have this is like a little bit of a status update, so I can see that I've got one of these green now, so it means that I've completed one of these areas. So it's really just trying to give as much feedback to the player as possible in a situation like this where it's something that might be a little bit more tricky to work out.
So I guess in terms of QA as well, like how do you QA something like this? Is it a case of do you look for, is it kind of, not only does it work well, but do you kind of look at how easy it might be, or if it's too hard, or?
Sure. So I mean, this one introduces a new force, right? So I don't think we've had gravity really playing much of a role up to this point in the game. So I remember there being a huge emphasis on us trying to detach the Spyder as much as possible and get him flying off into space. Because as a somebody that's playing this game, that's the worst thing that you want to happen. You're making progress through a puzzle and then you get pinged off. So that was, wherever there was anything involved with any sort of like force or surface, like slippiness, we always just, that was like our first area of attack, is like looking at, okay, this is somewhere where it's definitely risky for potentially detaching a few legs of this little guy and breaking him some way. So yeah, definitely throwing off a lot of objective items as far away off of the map as well, and to see if we can get them floating out into space. So really trying to manipulate gravity to do the worst possible things to the player, just to ensure that, again, you've got that robustness when people are trying to solve puzzles themselves and try things that are a little bit out of the box, it just stops them from getting into situations where they've actually sort of blocked themselves, really.
I guess you kind of, you said you want them to make sure that they don't block themselves or throw things off the map and it disappear and all that stuff. And I'm assuming that for you, that's a lot of your time spent making sure that people can't do that.
Yes, and especially as well, like something like this where it's a single player game, we had to really communicate with each other as well to make sure that we weren't all treading the same tracks constantly, that we were getting the best variation of destructive tests possible and we weren't all trying the same methods of something. But at the same time that we were also trying the same methods at something to get different perspectives of it. So for us, I think it worked really well because all of our team was sort of always situated quite nice and close to designers. So while we're all thinking out loud, oh, how can we break this? You've got the designers going, oh, well, don't try this. And we're like, right, let's go try that then, let's go do that. Yeah, you've sort of given us a red flag area to look into there. But yeah, a lot of communication involved and just honestly swapping some crazy ideas as well. Like, what if we could do this with him? Right, let's try, let's go.
Was there anything specifically in this game that you remember that and you know, feel free to say you don't remember, if there is something that you actually went, is there a crazy idea that we could try that then ended up kind of something that became something in the game?
I think it was a lot of stuff with the orange and like trying to.
You love the orange.
We loved the orange. Because we loved the tactileness of the rollerballs on the computers. So when that same movement was introduced on something that you can roll around a level, but that level is telling you, but you can only use this orange within a certain area, we were like, well, how do we get it out of this area? And how do we use it to do things that we shouldn't be doing? And I think there's especially a part in the underwater level, which is where this famous orange features, that has like a whole load of electricity and stuff as well. And if I remember correctly, just by sort of almost destructively testing around that area and trying to mess things up as possible, we ended up finding some holes and some breakages within like our save system. That in the end, it would have been pretty detrimental to have like left them in, but they would have been super hard to find had we not have just been messing around like that in the first place. So yeah, there was some stuff where we sometimes we were just playing and trying out new things. They didn't really result in anything, but I remember that being a really successful one where we sort of almost found this way to exploit and break the save system, and it was like, oh wow, I'm so glad we found this, and this isn't something we have to fix in release. Yeah.
What am I missing, Emma? I'm missing something.
What's it pointing you towards?
It's pointing me at something and I can't see it.
Over here. Oh, is it that the piece that's in there is busted? You've got to pull it out and replace it with another?
Oh, it could be. Could be.
Oh, it's
Could be.
Here.
There is, oh, no, it's
Oh
down
no,
there,
it's there.
right?
It's there. Beautiful.
Oh, these damn designers. Oh my.
Do you know,
Oh,
I don't want to say, but I thought I saw you walk past that earlier, but you were
I
like in the flow of a
probably
really
did.
interesting thought, and I didn't want to break it.
So what you're saying is you let him struggle.
I let him struggle.
Is there another one? Oh my god. It feels like there's another one. So that one's flashing, right? So like that feels like that's not in the right. It probably,
Yeah. You can pull it out. Look, there we go.
That's.
There we go.
Chuck that bad one away.
Is that a bad one?
That must be.
Oh,
It's a
no, that's
rubbish
bad
one. And then
You want to
try and
select that one.
yeah. This is captivating stuff for anybody watching, right?
It is, isn't it? Well, that's the thing, right? It's showing how it's not necessarily easy. There we go. There we go. Look at that.
that was it.
Don't quite understand
all-
that, but anyway.
Oh no. There you go.
So that's that one step forward, two steps back, right? So we put all the fuel lines back together, but those were obviously weakened. They had the fire on it, so it's like now you've blown the main fuel line, and we have to go back and fix that. So nothing's ever like a straight path to a solution in this game.
But do you make sure that the solution, like even in those instances, is easy to find? So like now, for example, you've got to rebuild it, but all the parts are all there. So it's about making sure that it's not the solution is not wild and out there.
Yeah, I mean that's what the markers are really like. We knew that we'd done something wrong in that section where we were a little bit stuck, and it's like those markers are really there to guide the player to say wherever wherever you're stuck, look for the white dot, right? Look for the arrows, look for the white dot. So that should be that. All those.
There goes the mill.
Yes, out into space.
I do love this level. I mean, again, like we talk about sense of scale, and like you have this 3 centimeter spider, you know, orbiting Earth. It's just fantastic. I do love this level. Just can't remember how to play it.
So obviously one of these, this game was one of the first on Apple Arcade, right? So
Yeah.
kind of how was that like? How was working with Apple like?
Yeah, they were fantastic. Basically, once they'd seen the prototype and they got a sense of what Spyder was, so they'd seen this early version of the War Room, they pretty much trusted us to get on with it and make it. They were really supportive when it came to a sort of an understanding of which platforms to support and all of those kind of things. And they were obviously incredibly busy getting the service up and running as well. So just the level of trust that they had in us to deliver something. And you know, this game took a long time to sort of find itself. And they never once really sort of questioned, you know, do you know what you're doing? You know, because there was definitely milestones where we looked at things and we're like, yeah, this is just not working yet. We know we're close, we know we'll get there, but it's just, you know, we're still trying to find this game, because it was very early on. I was saying, you know, there was no real game to compare it to, so there was no reference. We were having to kind of invent everything from scratch and find our own solutions to the problems that this game has from a design perspective, which is one of the reasons I think I love it so much, because it was such an interesting little challenge to work on, to build this game. And you know, Agent 8's got so much charm, and the overall look of the game and everything is just beautiful. But yeah, Apple were fantastic. It was really brilliant to sort of just be totally trusted to make something really great.
And you were saying there that Agent 8 has a lot of charm. How do you build it to have charm?
So it's a good question, because we sort of mentioned that we were brilliant at creating games around animals that trigger some kind of reaction in people, like spiders and snakes. And there was a lot of development of Agent 8, with a lot of different directions that we could have possibly gone down to create a spider. It was really important to us that we had something that wasn't going to trigger people's arachnophobia. And we found early on that if we just took away 2 legs, because you know, he's not a spider, he's a spy with a Y, so we're not pretending that this is an alive spider creature. This is a little spy robot. Taking away those 2 legs it really solved some of the. We'd had people on the team who were arachnophobic, and they were absolutely fine. And in fact, like, some of the feedback we had on Apple Arcade was, I hate spiders, but I love Spyder, which is brilliant. And again, that's sort of real, you know, that's the hard work of the character team and the concept artists to really take something that could have been incredibly scary. And like, if you look at the original Game Jam prototype, it's a little bit scary. It's a really spiky looking spider.
Very long legs.
Yeah.
Very sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of soften it and create this really sort of like friendly. It's Agent 8's a little bit like a puppy. Like, you know, you feel like it always wants to impress, always wants to do good. And animating the characters is pretty tricky as well, because a lot of it is procedural. You know, all of the legs, the leg movement is not animated. But there is in the eyes and in the mouth this kind of this level of animation that is there, which I think really helps. You don't get to see it as much as you probably should, but even just in the way the code team tackled the problem of the legs, it just feels really characterful. Like there's always a little bit of a struggle going on, like not quite perfect.
Yes.
And that's sort of endearing when a character's got like vulnerability and flaws. It's really quite endearing.
I was kind of about to ask anyway about, you know, why spider, why 6 legs, right? Because it's not what you'd see as your traditional, you know, spider has 8 legs. So you know, it was that all about part of creating the charm of I guess Agent 8?
I think definitely, and again, it's about finding a character that it wasn't going to trigger arachnophobia, was going to be charming, was going to be a character that would appeal to players. That it mattered a lot more to some people more than others. It never bothered me, I guess because I just don't see Agent 8 as a spider, as a living organism. Agent 8 is absolutely this tiny little robot. So I've never had an issue with it. Those that did they said, well, the antennae at the back, they're the missing legs, right? So there are 8 legs, it's just 2 are antennae, right? But it's not an easy thing to and we did go through quite a lot of revisions to get to where we get to the final look of Agent 8, and I think it's just a lovely, charming little character that's got this can-do attitude, and wants to succeed. And I've said it a couple of times now. This sort of David and Goliath thing of like this character that's just against all odds, engaging in a human-scale world while being this tiny 3-centimeter character. I think I have to close the door, don't I?
Yeah, I think there's a pin you've got to pull up and then
Oh, there you go, pull.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, there's something I've got to cut,
Pin at the bottom.
right?
Oh.
I think there's a pin at the bottom. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Helpful cameras.
Helpful camera showing us.
And we were talking about cameras earlier, right? In situations like this, is it very much kind of prioritizing what bits are going to help the player needs to do in this scenario? Is it very much trying to focus on giving hints to the player as well as orientating them in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to go through that sequence. If you know that you've got to cut that bit, you can just absolutely skip that. But wherever possible, we tried to make the camera be helpful. It was an incredible challenge to create the camera for this game. It really was. And as hard as the team worked on developing the camera, we got, I'd say, probably like 90% of the way there. There's still 10% of the time, but it kind of causes the character to maybe flip 180 and things like that. And that sort of just shows how difficult a challenge it was that we didn't quite get there. I'd love to have another opportunity to just like refine off something like that slight rough edge, but the amount of effort to get the camera to behave in this world where you can go anywhere and where the orientation, like, I don't know if I'm up, down, on the ceiling, anything right now. I could be anywhere, but it feels natural, it flows really nicely. And even though there's that 10%, and there always is as a designer, you're never 100% happy with anything that you ship. You always want to go back and fix things. I'd love to be able to like just have had maybe a little bit more time, or just the opportunity now to go in and just tune things up a little bit more. I think that was the same sequence, wasn't it? It was 3, 4, 2, 1.
Nice.
That's not very random, is it? So again, we got a little mini game here using this trackball. I can't remember how to play this one, so let's see.
Well, I guess there's no time like learning on the fly.
Yeah.
Or really?
Oh yeah.
Remember this one.
So you basically have to line up the target with these.
So who comes up with the little mini games?
It was the design team. It was all part of like working with the level design team and coming up with these little games that could be implemented fairly easily. I mean, they're actually pretty complex in how they're implemented. Probably a little bit more complex than we anticipated, but we really wanted to, again, it sort of had this world that was alive, had this tactility, so everything happy landings. So we're now coming in way too hot.
That was one of my favourite test beds, that was. We had a test bed, didn't we, that was just filled with gadgets, and it was like stepping into, is it M? No, who's the guy in James Bond who gives you the gadgets? It's like stepping into his workshop. Q.
Q.
Yeah. And like all of these different mini games would be prototypes and stuff, but they were all in this one level. And it was real fun to sort of see through development, like some of these ideas come to fruition and get developed into really cool mini games, and other ones that you think, oh, that works really well, just couldn't quite find a place to slot it in the game, but that was cool.
Did you have a favourite?
Oh, out of all of the gadgets, I don't know why the rollerball. There's something about just using a roller. It was hardly a gadget. Yeah,
it's just so
yeah,
nice,
just that interaction
and,
was just so nice. But yeah, I suppose like maybe the web gadget that you grapple around, just because it's such a cool idea. It's that it's adding a little bit of that Spider-Man feel to our Spyder game, where you can just grapple to these points, and yeah, that was a cool one.
I'm a bit confused again.
Oh, you've got to get it between the two dials,
Oh,
haven't you?
yeah.
So you've
No,
got to
it's like a DJ fader, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah,
so you've got
okay.
to move one.
Oh, you see.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. And look, it even lights up to show you which one you're doing. I'm just being
Yes.
stupid.
There we
we
go.
go.
Look at that.
I really like the visual signposting in this
Oop,
game.
look at that.
I feel like there's never a point where the game has to tell you in text what to do.
No.
It's just like, hey, look over here. Okay, right, got it.
So talking about visual signposts, how do you kind of like signpost that to players as a design team?
So it's having a common language, which I obviously completely ignored when I was doing that. You know, the little green and red lights, and it's nice that actually it's not just sort of this kind of like straight. Oh, I completely understand everything, but I understand everything, but I have to stop. I have to think about it a little bit. I mean, that was always the intention. It's in a weird way, it's not a particularly difficult game, but it does cause you to kind of take a look around, take a breath, take a think of like, you know, how to complete stuff. So there was obviously like the space fishing section was a little bit like, I had to think about that because it's been a while since I played it. I had to think about how to release the parachute. But as long as there's a consistent language there in terms of either those lights or the markers showing you where to go, eventually, you know, you'll find your way around the puzzle. You'll solve the puzzle, and it just takes a little bit of time. So it's really interesting to play. You can play the next one and look
Thank
stupid.
you. Is this the one?
This is the one. This is where we wanted to get to.
Oh,
Orange
this is what we want to get to. So this is a level that we've been wanting to get to. Apparently as well, that includes the infamous
QA's favourite piece of fruit,
Yeah,
the orange.
you learned it here first. So in terms of like, you know, the underwater level specifically that we're about to go into, how do you, I guess, what were your first thoughts in kind of this level and how it was meant to work?
I'm trying to remember if it was something completely different.
It was. It
Yeah.
was a huge underwater base
Yeah.
that was made up, I think, if I remember this correctly, various rings that were like stacked vertically on top of each
Yeah.
other, and you had to traverse what was quite a large space, really.
Yeah, again, yeah, so it's like it's finding a space that works really well for the character. We had a lot of levels that we got to grey box and we just threw away. They just weren't working. And for more than half of the project, we were in this phase of like just not quite nailing it. And it wasn't until probably like the August before we shipped that we had this concerted effort to go, look, okay, what are the fundamental things that we like about the character Spyder? And it's this 360 navigation. Let's just build something that really plays to the strengths of this 360 navigation and this interaction with the world. And what we ended up building was actually kind of the first act of the final mission for the game. And what's amazing is like, considering we've been in the woods for so long trying to find the game, but this sort of concerted effort of like 2 weeks, I think we were thinking that we might be showing at Gamescom and we wanted something to show. So we really kind of like just almost like did a reset, rethink, back to the drawing board. What is it that we want to show off, right? If we've got like 10 minutes to show off this game to someone. And yeah, we built this satellite dish, but you crawl around, and that ended up being the first act of the last level of the game. So something like this act structure it goes through a lot of the missions. So like in the spaceship we were just in, you know, you had that first act where you're in the bit doing the space fishing, and the sort of second act when you're more on the outside of the capsule, and then this third act where you're inside the capsule. And all of these levels follow this flow. So this submarine's kind of divided into 3 different sections, and introducing the player slowly to the space. So having the other 2 sections kind of walled off and inaccessible limits you, and you get familiar with the environment a little bit more first, and then we open a door and you've got a bit more of the environment to traverse, and we open the final door and you see the whole thing. So that philosophy, I think, really helped in creating worlds that could be a little bit more easily understood by the player, because the scale thing is a massive challenge. I seem to remember this is very puzzly, this section. Do you remember?
I am. I've just untriggered him in the old memory banks.
I was about to say, how are you finding this level so far, Emma?
This one, I think I'm blessed with my QA knowledge here at remembering where all of the points of these were, but otherwise, this would have been, I think this was the sort of space that was made really for you to explore, wasn't it?
Yeah,
to find
absolutely.
these without so much signposting. It was more using those traversal skills to get around. I've already forgotten what that said. Circle. Cool.
And there's nothing particularly deadly here. We've got a few like spilt liquids and things like that, but there's nothing that's going to kind of game over you in this section. So we do give you this space and this the time to explore, the time to try and understand the puzzle a little bit more.
There are some nice little Easter eggs as well. Did you see the diary entries over there talking about the octopus they caught? Yeah.
There's so many little bit touches that the art team put in like that are just beautiful. In the train in the next level, I don't know if anybody's even discovered it. So there's a train that you have to stop, a runaway train, and there's a radio in the cabin of the train, and you can tune it. And if you tune it, you get like lounge versions of the Spyder theme. But if you tune it to a specific frequency, you get an old spy number station, which is just like these little touches for any. I don't know if anybody ever discovered that, but we wanted to have this world where if you interacted with things, there was lots of little Easter eggs and little things to discover, but it felt special if you took the time and effort to kind of like forget that the train is derailing any minute now. Like go tune the radio and see what you can find.
That was my first voice acting gig as well.
Was that you?
I'm on the radio. I am all of the voices of the other radio stations.
You?
It's me pitched up and down going.
Oh yeah, because it's like a sitcom or something, isn't there, as well? Yeah.
I didn't even know. I got put in as a placeholder voice, and then it was Dom, our lead audio on the project, said, "Oh, by the way, we've just used your voice and stuck you in as all of the dialogue."
Okay, fair enough.
It's something
I'm happy with
And that Hollywood.
You are. It's something we've not talked about because we're playing with the volume down, but the audio in this game is spectacular, particularly if you play on something like Apple TV and you've got like a 5.1 or 7.1 sound system. For something that is essentially, you could say, oh, it's just a mobile game. The amount of effort in the audio and in the music as well, but in the sound design is just incredible in all of these levels. It just really immerses you in the space incredibly well. And the music's really dynamic as well. It really does cue nicely so that when you've achieved something, you get that audio feedback, or that something is coming up, something to be aware of. It's just really incredibly well done. So if anybody does have an Apple TV and Apple Arcade, and a really nice sort of soundbar or 5.1, 7.1 system, have a play, because it just sounds beautiful, this game.
So I was just giggling at that little bit then where it just said
The lit button.
about I hope those buttons weren't vital for anything.
That's probably one of my regrets, is that we didn't get any voice acting for the little mission dialogues. That would have been really nice to have got that.
There we go.
Another little mini. Oh, this one's great.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to like match the waveform frequency. So other way, yeah. And then like left and right to like get it in sync.
That was it. I really like this one.
Yeah, this is.
There we
this
go.
is
Look at
brilliant.
that.
Oh, look at that. Oh, I forgot it's timed as well, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's timed, but again, like failure doesn't mean game over or anything like that. It just means sort of giving it
There we
another
go. Look at that. Look at those QA skills at work.
I'm telling you, I love this trackball.
Yeah.
It's such a good little trackball. Look at it go.
It's just the way his little legs move on it. This is coming from somebody as well who absolutely hates spiders. So when I was first told, oh, you're going to be working on a game called Spyder, and I was thinking, oh,
no,
my goodness me.
Yeah.
But he's, just, oh my goodness, I'm panicking now. You just fall in love with him. He's got so much character, and the animation team did such an amazing job, at emoting him for all of his different sort of situations. Can we mention that they added in that at one point they tested how he looked when he pooped out his own eyeballs when he died? Do we have to cut
I
that?
don't think I ever saw that. So.
I mean, you can tell us more about it now you mentioned
That was just, they were playing around with different death animations, and obviously he's a really cute guy, so it's this idea that you kind of make his death a bit fun, I suppose, even though dying is not fun for a character. And yeah, I just remember one of the more popular ideas that they played around with, but in the end sort of abandoned for fears it may not be too family friendly, was as he died, he pooped his own eyeballs out. And it was,
funny though.
Yeah, it was very
Funny.
funny. We loved that.
Do you remember any more? Or was it just the pooping out the eyeballs that was?
I remember the ones they left in. It was just, I think they were all just. It was all how he reacts to environmental stuff. So being electrocuted versus like hitting fire, hitting water, being scared of certain things as well. I think his fear one. It wasn't. We didn't use it too much in the game, but it's probably one of my favourite ones because it just makes him so adorable.
All secrets. So again, on touch, doing this mini game, it's all about like you touch the cables basically to pull them out, and again, sort of really nicely tactile.
Which
is the orange.
Is that the famous orange?
That's the reason we came in today.
Is the orange?
It's the
Right.
orange.
Okay.
Do you want to?
No, please.
Thank you so much.
I think it's QA's favourite fruit. We need to have you controlling Spyder as.
Where I embarrass myself and can't get to it. I think you grab it, right? Oh, I can't get it.
You can get over to that other seat, and then you can
Yes.
just roll it into the water.
I see
So-
the path.
Is this bit of time? But it said look for some way across the water, and the water are the water levels actually getting higher, or is it just?
Yeah, they are.
They are.
Yeah.
So can you have it if you were to, and I'm sure you may be able to tell me this, if you were to just wait for eternity, would you eventually?
No, they don't. So they're not. It's not like it's constantly raising. It raises in sections. So again, it's sort of staged to add that sort of element of drama, that element of not fear, but like you can tell that things are going to get a bit more serious each time you do something. It's that 1 step forwards, 2 steps back thing. There's a little toy version of the sub on the desk.
Oh. Am I supposed to do anything with it?
No.
It's just
You go down the handle of the, don't you? I think.
I thought it was down. I couldn't get to that chair. Oh, there it is. It's the flask. I knew there was something to do with a flask of soup. I was
There we
taking the
go.
tea with
Oh,
me just
yeah,
in
yeah,
case,
yeah,
but
yeah.
there we go.
So the flask is now floating.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff was around. It's like it didn't just magically appear, and now it's floating, and you can use it. So you're moving the seat back.
There you go.
Now you've got an excuse to be an annoying airplane passenger. Now.
Yeah.
There you go.
All of these ration tins. They even have like cooking instructions on them, and it's incredible the amount of like just multi-purpose food. No
There you
picking
go.
or freezing.
Protein-rich granules fortified with vitamins and minerals, pre-cooked, ready to use. Ugh.
I do hope we did read everything.
There we
There's just
go.
a little bit of panic in my brain.
Yeah.
Like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Ah, there it is.
There we go.
Look at
There
that.
we go.
The
How it bobs.
buoyancy,
Yes.
So, could you tell us a little bit more about why this is your favourite, one of your favourite bits of the game?
I think it was the idea, like, up until now, as the Spyder, you're travelling around just as the Spyder. This is like the first sort of sense of a vehicle, if
It's
that
like a
makes any
vehicle,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, it's his first vehicle, and it works so much. It just works really well as well. It's super fun to get around. And again, going down that whole route of the destructive exploratory testing, we were just super excited to get our hands on this. And if I remember correctly, we got some really great bugs where we could like ramp it up off of different things and launch it into the air. We were really going nuts with it. So I think out of all of the features that we destructively tested, for some reason this one just really resonated with us, and we were all quite fond of it.
Yeah, so like the buoyancy of it's just really beautiful. And again, it's like the stuff's not easy to do, and doing it on this massive range of devices with various different like GPU, CPU performance, just really incredible that the team pulled it off. What is that, a crab?
That's, I think, specimens.
It's got a crab claw in it.
Yeah.
Like, we built a crab claw. Why did we
And we've
No, look at
got
that.
little bits of jarred octopus and stuff as well.
So things kind of kick off, don't they, in this next room?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Spoilers?
Sorry. Well, we always kick off towards the end.
That's very true. That's very true. There you go.
There we go. Now I can get my orange up here, see?
Ah, yeah.
It's all about the orange. Let's go.
There you go. So,
So yeah, if you stand on that, and then the door will open, but it won't stay because the moment you,
Yeah.
In
fact, no,
No,
because
it won't.
he's too light. He's too light.
so that's why you need the orange.
Yep, the button has been specifically programmed to only accept at least the weight of a standard Satsuma. There There we go.
There you go, look at that.
Oh, she lost it. Come on.
Come on, come on.
There we
You
go.
can do it. Nice bit of rim lighting on that as well. It's really nice. The lighting's beautiful here. Really beautiful.
There we go.
This specific area as well gets quite VFX heavy, and I remember that
Yeah.
being a challenge to keep the performance consistent across all our devices, because our lower end ones really started to struggle before we had this level properly
Yeah.
optimized.
So this is quite a tricky little puzzle. You got to like do this in kind of the right order. I seem to remember.
Oh yeah. Now isn't
Which will
there?
probably mean not starting with that one and probably be like starting at the end or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. You start over here, don't you?
So as we're kind of working through this puzzle, could you explain a little bit about what you need to do here?
Yeah, it's one of those. Is it lateral thinking? Something I'm not very good at, if it is. And it's about understanding the sequence so that you're basically moving these terminals out of the way so that other terminals can bridge and short circuit the batteries. And there's only one way to do it, I think. There might be more than one way to do it, actually. I've got no idea. But it's like trying to basically put positive to positive or negative to negative. So getting these two red lights to light up together. And it might take a few attempts because I can't remember quite how
I
to do it.
cannot remember at all.
I think, doesn't this end one need to go over, or is that going to go down?
That end one there, when I did it, it did two red lights, so let me go back over it.
Does your QA memory not?
This is the one where it's failing me.
Oh, maybe you need to spin it out and then bring this lower one in and then spin that back down to I'm not sure, maybe
no,
there? Maybe
that's-
to
wait,
across
it's not
to there?
red. We don't want red, do we? We want blue. Red is usually
No,
bad.
isn't red what we want?
We do want red. Okay. My mistake.
Ready
Forget
what
all
we
that
want.
stuff I said about like consistent, color language and like signposting. It's like, it obviously doesn't matter. I think blue means it's good and red means it's bad, right? So you want to make, in this situation, you want to make things bad.
Bad.
Because we're overloading the
Yeah.
engines. That's it.
So you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
move.
Here we go.
So you might need to move that top
Yeah.
one out of the way. I'm not sure. Let's see if that one.
So forgive the very silly question, Emma. If you're as QA, is kind of like how difficult a puzzle is something that is something you're interested in, or is it very much about how to break it?
100% no. Like one of our things was that, again, like as I said before, we sat quite close with our design team, and we didn't really like knowing spoilers to puzzles, because to us it felt like the best feedback we could give would be how difficult something is, and obviously you don't get any real sort of indication of how difficult something is if there's sort of slight hints or you've heard a little bit on the grapevine as to what you're going to expect from a puzzle. So to us, yeah, we really wanted like sort of some of the solutions to the puzzles be kept like a closely guarded secret, which is really hard when you have your QA embedded with all of your development teams. But yeah, that sort of I think helped enable us to give really helpful and useful feedback. But to be fair, with respect to the idea of like how can we test how difficult a puzzle is, we got a lot of support from the rest of the studio as well. You know, if I remember correctly, we had like admin and HR playing.
Yeah.
We had people from all walks of different disciplines and stuff like that giving it a go, and all giving their own opinions and perspectives of the difficulty of the puzzles, and that really helped sort of, I guess, QA guides design a little bit in terms of feedback for how much effort a puzzle was, I suppose, because you don't want stuff to be too easy, right? You want there to be a degree of messing about and trying some different things, but my God, just got zapped. This is where now stuff starts to get spicy, right? Because these have now turned into bridges to get past all this electricity.
I mean, you do have a health bar, but it is very forgiving. I think it regenerates as well. I would imagine it regenerates.
Yeah, I think it does.
Like death was not really. It was not something that we really sort of wanted to focus on having as something that the player experience a lot. So I'm sure the health kind of regenerates.
We go and then onto there.
So I think it's worth pointing out that like we're playing this on an iPad, and we're capturing the footage straight from the iPad. But this is not a new iPad. This is like a 2017 iPad. So you know it's running on 7-year-old Apple stuff, which is, you know, it's still running great.
Part of that, you know, testing on all devices that we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Making
Exactly.
sure it works on across a variety of different devices and, you know, from the top end to the bottom end, right?
Yeah, for
This is all
sure.
part
Like
of it.
I've worked on other mobile projects before, but I think Apple, there's something about the longevity of their devices where they have so many users that really do need that sort of backwards compatibility. So that was really important to us. We didn't want people to walk away from the game because they felt that their phone wasn't good enough to play it. It really was like open to, I think actually at the time, even though we released the game in 2020, I think the lowest end device that we had was a 2015 model phone. So we really did go.
I think I had that phone. I think I had like an iPhone 6S when this came out, and I used to play it on that, and it was absolutely great.
Yeah.
So obviously you
Got one
mentioned
left to
one of the
do.
things, you know, you mentioned was that it was released in 2020. Obviously that was kind of very much the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So how did COVID affect, you know, this project?
So we shipped pretty much the week that we went into lockdown as a studio. So like the final week of the project was the week that we all got sent home, which I guess in some ways was fortunate, but you know, I don't think there was much left to do. It might have even been with Apple to say, hey, release this next week. But obviously that's like a crazy thing to happen, you know, at the end of the project, that we all thought we'd be gone for like a couple of weeks. And obviously we know what happened with COVID. And one of the things that's because of that and because of the needs of other projects, like after we'd finished and after we'd all started working from home, kind of the team was a little bit scattered, all working on different things, but we didn't quite realize how popular the game was going to be. So when we started to see like number of players, we were like, okay, there's something here. People are really, really liking this game. So we were trying to work out the best way to make extra content with it. So in lockdown, in sort of this infancy of learning to work from home remotely and all that, we actually had to build another team to generate extra content. So we have these things called micro missions, daily micro missions in the game. And that was built pretty much by a completely new team that we assembled as we were in lockdown. And they absolutely did a brilliant job as well. Those micro missions are just really good fun. They're like 3-minute little test levels almost. You're meant to be in this like training ground. And what was great was that team was able to come into this project with a fully working Agent 8 and seeing all the things that we'd done in the game and like understanding the character fully, and they were able to just take that character and run with it, and just because there was like less limitations in terms of we weren't building realistic environments, we really were meant to be these little test environments for Agent 8. It sort of freed up level design to do some really creative stuff.
Thanks for watching. Join us for the next episode of Sumo Sheffield Plays Spyder. In the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel and follow us on our social media channels. See you next time.